everyone, Joshua Hanlon here at Bricks Cascade in Portland, Oregon, and today we're looking at this massive Napoleonic-era naval battle, and I've got both of the builders of these incredible ships with me, so if you guys want to introduce yourselves, then we'll take a look at these incredible ships.
So I'm Chelo Lorino, also known as Captain Xavier. That's my YouTube channel, Captain Xavier's Brick Channel. This is...
I am Lance Alderson, also known as Sgt. Deplorable, if you're familiar with that, and we built this fleet.
And this is absolutely amazing, but I know you kind of started with this ship here at the very end, so tell us what we have here.
So what we have here is the culmination of wanting to have a pirate ship, but not living in the era in which they were available. I'd always wanted a sailing ship, and the classic pirate sets were amazing. So when the plague hit 2 years ago, I took some time to build myself a ship, a proper sailing ship with the right amount of cannon on it, you know. And so I built the closest thing I could get to a roughly a fifth-rate frigate. That's 32 guns. And this is what the result was. And I thought it looked pretty neat, and so I showed it off to a friend.
And that's where the escalation started. I'd also always wanted to have these. I'd loved the USS Constitution since I was a little kid, and I wanted a frigate of that era.
That Constitution is a rare set, not something you see very often.
Yeah, and so when he built his, I looked at it like, okay, I want to do this, and I hemmed and hawed for a while, and then Super Sick published his instructions for the Fair Maiden as a frigate, and that was exactly what I wanted, so I acquired the instructions, and I built my first pair of 36 gun ships, the ones that are at the far end over there, and I built a pair of them in matching because I had two of the old Caribbean Clipper, and so I wanted a pair of perfectly matching blue frigates, built them, but then I needed something for them to fight. And I had the large Imperial flagship and the smaller Imperial flagship from the Red faction, so I built my Red frigate, and the camera's way over there, and I built a smaller one to be to balance. So I'd have two mediums and a large and a small. The small ended up being too small, so I made it even smaller and built another one. But they balanced. That was 72 guns. The two frigates were 72 guns, and it was balanced. And that was very important, and that will be a theme you will see throughout this madness, because he then built another 32. So he had a 32, a 32, 36, 36, 44, 14, 14. And then when he decided he wanted to build a proper ship of the line, a warship.
A frigate is all fine. A frigate is all fine and good. It's nice. It's neat. But there's something about a ship of the line, something with 50 guns or more that has a weight to it.
The gravitas. Yes. So he was going to build a 50, and I talked him into going to 74. So he built a 74 and I built a 74, and thus balance was maintained. But then I realized he had the two 32s that were unbalanced. So I built a 64.
Balance was achieved again.
Again, we had balance. And then he decided, nope, he originally wanted to build a 50. He wanted to build that 50, so he decided to build his 50. But I didn't want to build a 50. I wanted to build a 104. So in order to maintain balance, I then also had to build a 54 for the blue faction.
Well, because one ship of the line is nice, but everyone wants two of something, right?
You've got to have at least two.
And if not two, maybe three.
Maybe three. So in the end, we ended up with 314 guns per fleet for a total of 628 guns, which, if I remember correctly, is two fewer guns than were at the Battle of Gettysburg. So there's a lot of cannon here.
And we're only maybe 1/10, 8% of the actual ships that were at Trafalgar.
Yeah, there are about 60 altogether, and we've got 12 here.
So this is a good time to mention that Trafalgar is kind of the basis for this whole layout. So tell us a little bit about that battle and how you've kind of recreated it here.
So that was the battle we really wanted to do because it's the iconic battle from the Napoleonic War. It's what determined whether England was ever going to get invaded by Napoleon and how well that would all turn out. And when we asked them, hey, can we get a giant T to set this up, because that's how the battle went. Usually they'd line the two lines up and they just blasted each other. But Nelson decided that was silly, and he was just going to go straight at them and break their line. And so we wanted to recreate that, but that would require us to have an enormous T, which we figured was going to be asking too much for the space available. And so we asked for either a giant T or two lines side by side. And if we had the side by side, we would have had full broadsides, and it would have been really cool to see. But the ships would have blocked each other, unless they could have them far enough apart that you could walk between them. But they gave us the T. So that's how we've got it set up. My big 104 gun there is modeled after the HMS Victory. I've got a little Lord Nelson on there. And his 74 is the one that's about to get crossed behind and utterly obliterated. And so it's a perfect representation of that, of a subsection of that battle, a small bit of it. And so, yeah.
What kind of research did you guys do for this?
So the frigate was built, like I said, about 2 years ago, but that was the start of the deep dive into naval history. I've acquired a small library of naval architecture, model shipbuilding, rigging. I have learned so many terms that I have forgotten. Like, what's a clue garnet? What really is a clue garnet?
Do I need to know what a clue garnet is?
The answer is no, you don't. This is LEGO. But it has been an accumulation of reading as much as I can, watching a couple documentaries every other week just to see if somebody else has a different take on it. So it's a couple weeks of books, a couple movies to watch, a couple of documentaries to go through, just to learn a small iota of what actually occurred.
And the whole fleet layout is incredible. Let's take a closer look at a couple blue ships of the line, and then we'll go over to the red fleet. So if you can, go ahead and point out some of the details here on this.
Oh, certainly. So if we actually want to go to the 74, we'll start with that. That is, I guess, my pride and joy. On here we have a two-deck ship of the line with 74 guns, a full complement of Marines with as close as I could make historically accurate uniforms. And then we have handmade rigging, so that's roughly 320 knots for the entire ship tied. That was 2 days worth of sitting there looking at the same string over and over and over again.
That is some crazy dedication.
It's cheaper than buying the LEGO rigging. So if I can save a buck and it only costs me 2 days of my time, I think that's worthwhile. On board we have our Admiral and Lieutenant giving orders frantically as the Victory is about to pummel them. We have some troops disembarking in a vain attempt to go board the Victory. I don't think they're going to do well. And then we have Lieutenant over in the corner packing his bags surreptitiously. I wonder what he's about. That pretty much wraps it up from my end.
Yeah. Well, talk about the different deck levels here. So kind of, is there interiors in there, or how does that work?
I can actually grab a section of the ship. My ship is built using a hinge and a brick system, so you can kind of see a section of it here. I did this for economic reasons. This is fairly affordable from my perspective, so I don't really have an interior because a lot of it's taken up by extra bracing to make it solid enough to move. The only points of details are details you can see. So the open waist here, you can look down into the gun deck. You can see a cap stand for raising and lowering the anchor. You can see crews at the guns moving equipment around. You can see hatches that would then lead lower down. So this ship would have had 2 gun decks. Then it would have had what's called the quarter deck here with the captain on it. And then up here in the back is referred to as the poop deck. That's where most of the Marines would stand to be able to actually fire down upon enemy ships. And then in the front, there's a small forecastle. That's, again, another area of the ship to put cannons on to have troops mounted in order to be able to wage combat against enemy ships.
So I know we mentioned that the overall layout is kind of based on the Battle of Trafalgar. Are there specific French ships that you base some of these off of?
So these aren't based off French ships because after a few revolutions and an emperor and another revolution, you tend to lose all the documentation. The British, on the other hand, having a reigning monarchy lasting, hundreds of years, they kept all their paperwork. So I had to, because of research limitations, I had to base them off British ships. So this is based off the HMS Cumberland. And fittingly, the 50 gun is based off the HMS Portland.
Oh, very nice.
Right? So I figured that was fitting if I was going to build a 50 gun ship. And also, historically speaking, it's not uncommon for the French to have taken British designs back and forth and traded or stolen, some say, or take captured vessels and rework certain design features into the ones they were building at the time. So just given the vast amount of documentation, I opted to use British design plans for my French vessels.
Yes. Now, there were also Spanish ships at the Battle of Trafalgar, right? So did you base any of that off of that, or is that something you maybe include in the future?
I think that'll be a future expansion if we go into that. At the moment, we're kind of playing off the classic pirates had the red coats and blue coats. Yeah. So we have the two color schemes going at the moment, just to keep that sort of theme present.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let's take a closer look at the red ships of the line over here then. So some more of this British fleet. Obviously, as you mentioned, Horatio Nelson is the iconic kind of historical character from this battle. His ship, the HMS Victory, still survives to this day. You've got the arm missing.
With the arm missing and everything, I do plan to get a custom minifig made that'll have the actual uniform with the medals and all of his ostentatiousness. Yes. This ship is based off the HMS Victory, and I had the fortune of it still exists. So there's lots of documentation for the HMS Victory. This one's based off the HMS Ajax, and then the next one down is based off the HMS Agamemnon. And there's little differences here and there between all of them. This one is a first-rate, 104 gun, 3 decks, and I do have interior detailing.
If you can show anything to us, that'd be awesome.
Let's see if I can get it off. Come off of there, you wretched little... There we go. So the back does come off. And I have the officer's mess. I have the ready room. And then the bottom floor is the admiral's quarters with his desk and his chair and all of that. There's a lot more detailing I want to do, but time had its limitations. That will need to get put back on at a different time. He mentioned that his was built on a much more economic design. I had greater resources, and so I went ahead and built mine to a much more expensive design, but a much more solid design. Oh, geez, we're losing a mast. Behave yourself, sir. Sir. Oh, no. I'm just going to have to hold that up. But I actually have full planking and ribbing and decks and all of that for the whole thing, which is much more solid, much more historically accurate, and about 4 times as expensive.
Yes. No, a few years ago, we actually had the opportunity to go to Portsmouth and tour the HMS Victory.
Oh, nice.
Very similar to walking around the decks of the ship even today. So I think you captured that really well here. And we don't want anything falling apart, so you've got to be careful here as well.
Okay. The back end was pulling the sail.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so it'll stay up now. Talk about the minifigures if you can a little bit. Did you do any customization, or are these all standard LEGO parts?
These are all standard LEGO parts, for, again, economic reasons. We are very short on crew. I was a little bit low on crew before I built the Victory, and so adding a ship that should have another 800 crew gave me issues. We worked out if we were to actually fully crew this whole fleet, it would take about 5,000 minifigures. Wow. And we obviously don't have 5,000 minifigures. So I'm using just regular red striped pirates as my sailors. I'm using regular red coats as my Marines. I do have the old red admiral. That's just what we had available.
I like that little the cross section you showed earlier, because it does show kind of structurally how it comes together. So are these builds pretty strong then once you get all those connected?
Mine are incredibly strong, yes. They've got, like, the structural integrity from above is amazing. His, if you're not careful, you push too hard on the deck and it falls through. But that's the advantage of it costing a quarter of what mine does. Mine has a lot of additional features that his doesn't. Like, I have actual staircases everywhere there should be a staircase. The ship's wheel does make the rudder turn. The capstan does raise and lower the anchors. Little details like that, because I'm a madman. On the 64, those features are actually motorized. Okay. So the capstan is motorized and the rudder is motorized. I don't have a battery with me, unfortunately, but you can see the cords hanging down on the far side. And 2 of the guns are actually motorized, so that it'll actually fire them from the lower gun deck.
And what are these smaller boats that we have here?
The smaller ones, the boats here with guns on them were referred to as, creatively, gunboats. And they exist because that man is a sneaky Frenchman. And his 50-gun ship actually has 58 guns on it. Some guns weren't necessarily counted, like guns on the top deck weren't always included. So he upset the balance that we were so perfectly. So he has 8 more guns than he's supposed to, so I built 3 gunboats that have a total of 8 guns. And balance has been restored. Very important. So that's what they're about. And they were actually a thing. They were small boats that had things like heavy mortars on them, or in this case, cannonades, which were particularly good at penetrating hulls. And they would actually sail this tiny little boat as close as they could get and try to actually sink the enemy ship. And since it's such a small target, it's very hard to hit. It's only going to take 1 hit to sink it, But you've got to hit that little boat on a rocking sail in the middle of a massive naval battle while they row up and just put their cannon up against your hull and blow a hole through you. Very, very rude. There are also a couple of battles where the British sank all of their ships, and they couldn't afford to rebuild full warships, so they just built 200 of these little things and just went at you all at once. And that's a lot of little targets to hit, and only one of them needs to hit you. So, yeah, it was just a little fun little, let's just throw these in here.
And so your sails are different than some of the blue ship sails, right?
Yeah, so all of the white sails ships are mine, and they're much simpler because I had a lot more to make. He hand-tied his and drew lines on them, and it's gorgeous. But I had 4 times as many sails to make, and so I did it really simply, just exactly the way LEGO makes theirs. You could replace, some of these are exactly identical to LEGO sails. I used them as the pattern and just traced it out and cut it out, and it's just, they're all made out of canvas. I would love to eventually upgrade mine to be as pretty as his, but that's a lot of canvas.
Yeah, we'll see one day. But you guys, both of you have done an incredible job. I love that kind of competitive spirit that kept you guys building and improving on these. So is there plans then to add more ships or do possibly other naval battles from this era?
Yes. Well, the next ships that I want to build is I want to build some merchant ships.
Okay.
I want to build a British merchant ship, roughly based on the frigate size there. Same thing with the French one. They'll be the brighter red and the brighter blue rather than the darker blue, which is how we're kind of designating the warships. I want to build a Spanish treasure galley and a Spanish war galleon, which will be about the size of the 54 gun over there. I want to build a Dutch merchant ship because they were really very unique looking. The extreme tumble home, and it looks like a tulip bulb. I want to build one of those, and then I do want to build some pirate ships. But they're going to be really very small. Most pirate ships were small, either sloops or merchant ships that were converted. Like the Queen Anne's Revenge was only like a 32-gun merchant ship. It was only 32 guns because they just kept cramming guns onto it. But it started out as a merchant ship. I think it started out Dutch and was bought by the British and then stolen by Blackbeard. But I do want to build some pirate ships. And so eventually we'll have a big pirate battle where pirates are attacking merchants and escort ships are fighting back. And it won't be quite the big war setup, but it'll be more piratey, as it were. And then we might enter it in battle. We might take it down to the pirate side. We'll see.
Yeah. What is the public reaction when they come up and see this massive layout with all of these big ships? Are you able to explain kind of the history of this and the story of Trafalgar?
Yeah, as much as we can as people are passing by. We don't quite go into the detail that we've gone here, but yeah, we explain this is the victory, this is the Battle of Trafalgar, here's what's going on, here's what's going to happen. And people have been incredibly impressed by the size of these. And the thing is, I've been staring at them for the last 8 months, so they're just kind of, oh, yeah, it's a thing. And then somebody goes, oh my God, these are amazing. And then there's me going, you're right. This is a lot of boat. That's just a ridiculous amount of boat. So, yeah, it's been fun.
It really is incredible. So thank you so much for all the effort that both of you put into this, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to take us through all this here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am a big fan of your channel.
Awesome.
You should all go check out my channel, Captain Xavier's Brick channel. If you just look for Captain Xavier, you're going to find my Nerf channel, and you're going to be very confused.